Hello, my name is Zaki Dejani, and I'll be talking about minimalism versus capitalism on my speech today, speech 3. All right, here we go. Today we live in a world where we are told to spend our hard-earned cash. In a time where most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, there has to be a solution. Whether that is because we want to celebrate an achievement or just to keep in style, consumerism is the name of the game. For a startup business, the first question is how? How do we sell our product? Most of us can differentiate between a good and service that we need versus a good and service that we want. It's the company's job to sway our opinion through a field called marketing. Companies will spend a fortune trying to get us to agree that we need a certain good or service. The reason why I believe minimalism is important is because of how we are raised in today's society. From a very young age, kids today are becoming more and more materialistic. Parents are convinced that their children need a certain brand of cereal or a certain toy. This is through no fault of our own. We are constantly being tempted by companies and corporations telling us that we need more of the things we can do without. This blurs the line between need and want from a very young age, which affects our future behavior. For example, according to a website, Statista, there are more people buying new cars on credit than there have ever been before. According to the statistic, 85.53% of all new cars are bought with money that they don't have. In other words, credit. Another scary statistic by the Washington Post is that there is a record-breaking 7 million Americans that are at least 3 months behind their paycheck, their car loan checks. Us Americans are fighting an uphill battle against debt. According to USDebtClock.org, the United States is sitting on a staggering $22 trillion of debt. According to Forbes, the national student loan debt is higher than ever before in 2019. So how can we alleviate ourselves from this debt? Minimalism is especially useful for us that are going through school or are already in debt. Here's why. Education is becoming more and more important. And that is why people decide to finance their futures. And that is perfectly good. As long as you see a return on your investment. Don't get me wrong, this is great. But the amount of money that Americans owe in student loans are over $1.56 trillion and an average of $28,650 per borrower. Something is clearly wrong. How can minimalism help Americans from escaping this debt trap? We need to start educating our youth about financial responsibility. For example, instead of purchasing that flashy car with money you do not possess, buy a cheap car that is used. Once you achieve financial prosperity, then think about a car that you can now afford. Adopting a minimalistic approach can help young Americans like you or me take control of our finances. Financial responsibility is something that we all must be accountable for. When one can afford it, consumerism is actually a good thing and can help stimulate the economy. This brings me to my third point. Why I believe that all young Americans should embrace minimalism. Young Americans have it harder than ever. This is how minimalism can help you. There is one simple concept in finance. Make more than you spend. For most of us, this makes perfect sense. But in America, young Americans are encouraged to embrace consumerism from a very young age. Minimalism, on the other hand, teaches financial responsibility. It teaches the buyer to take a step back and analyze whether or not they need that product they were planning to purchase. Do I really need this? Is it really worth my hard work? These are questions you should ask yourself. For example, a large number of Americans make so many different payments that ultimately reduce their purchasing power. There are contracted expenses such as an iPhone that you bought on monthly payments and are in a contract for 2 years. Your car that you agreed to finance for 5 years. The lease that you are legally binded to that makes you pay rent for the next year, the 1 year lease, and all your monthly bills. All these detract from your ultimate spending. So anything you can do to reduce the wants and focus on spending your money on the needs will help you greatly. Instead of making large monthly payments, find a way to rid yourself of any want, not need, that can clearly decrease your purchasing power, such as an iPhone, a flashy car, streaming services, and whatever else you can live without. In conclusion, financial responsibility teaches the consumer that anything that is not absolutely needed can wait. It teaches financial awareness. With the money saved, you can continue to grow your wealth, making responsible investments. Instead of limiting your purchasing power, it can help it grow. No one wants to feel like they are being crushed by the overwhelming weight of debt that follows them around everywhere they go. Are you going to let your paycheck control you? Or are you going to have your paycheck work for you? Thank you.